The title of our lesson is No More Tears. Our devotional reading is coming from Isaiah 32, 9 through 20. Our background scripture is coming from Revelations 21, 1 through 9. Our print passage is Revelations 21, 1 through 9. Our key verse reads this way. I'm going to read from the New International Version. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain, for the old order of things have passed away. I don't know how many of us realize what Revelation means as far as the Bible goes. I think Revelations is one of the most important books in the Bible. All of them are important, but I think Revelation speaks of God's power, his plan, his vision, things to be, things that will happen. Revelation give us all that. You know, and I sat down the other day and I listened to the entire chapter of Revelations on a DVD. The whole book. And one of the things that I got out of this, and we're going to break it down into the lesson, because, see, John is about to experience a vision of things to come. And one of the things that I realized that I was in listening to the book of Revelations, you have to remove yourself. You actually have to be in the spirit to understand Revelations. And the further I went into Revelations, there was fear of the beast. You know, how Satan come in and went to war, but Jesus did what he did, conquered death, conquered Satan. But there was moments of a little bit of fear. And once you get removed of that fear in Revelations, then you find the hope that you need to hang on as a Christian. See, don't start out in Revelations talking about the vials and the plagues that's pulled out. They're for non-believers. See, even to this day, if we look at things that's going on around us, everything that we have in this life, even this building, will pass away, but not the word. So we need to be careful on how we approach Revelations and understand it is not you that's reading Revelation. I think it's the Holy Spirit that's going to lead and guide you through Revelations. Because without the Spirit, that carnal mind, guess what you'll do? You'll pause Revelation in the middle of Revelations because it gets too deep for you. So the only thing that I can say is hang on to your faith. Because without faith, none of this is going to be possible, able, and will be able to be seen. Be seen is the key to that. So as we get off into this lesson, we're going to find out that he's setting a tone for us of things to come. I'm going to start out and I'm going to read. I'm trying to figure out, I'm going to read from the King James Version, the New International Version. I think I'll go with the New International Version. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. I want y'all to hang on to that phrase sea, because in this lesson it's going to break down the symbolic meaning of sea in this lesson. I saw the holy city, the New Jerusalem coming down out of heaven from God, preparing as a beautiful bride, a bride of beautiful dressing from her husband. I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "Look, God dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them. They will be his people. God himself will be with them and be their God." And I'm going to hold up right there. You ever notice sometime when you read a lesson, there is a S on particular verses when it say God's instead of God? Anybody have any analogy on why that occurs? Go ahead. Correct. That's right. Living God. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And let me help you on that. When it has an apostrophe S, this is my understanding, it's of sharing of God. God is in the midst of working for you. When we talk about God as a plural, it's pointing directly to him. So we need to understand that both these analogies are right. But God works for us sometimes in many different facets. That's if we say we are God's people. Mm-hmm. That means we belong to him. Yes. And that's where that apostrophe S comes in. He owns everything. He's the creator. He's the creator, and it's all his. So everything is God's apostrophe S. There you go. Yeah, he's working for us. Again, it comes back to what he's doing for us as believers. See, one thing that God cannot do is we cannot justify believing in God if we are not a believer in God. You can't justify it. Carrying on. Good analogies on the difference between God with an S and a singular God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning, or crying, or pain, for the older of things have passed away. You know, when we sit down, we always have an analogy in our mind of what we seem to think heaven is going to be like. Everybody in here have some kind of understanding of what heaven might be like for each one of us. We feel like when we leave here, we're going to see loved ones that are gone on. We feel like that we're going to live forever. We feel like we're going to be pain-free, have no more need. Yeah, it strives, but one of the things that I'm saying is, where we at now, this is going to pass away. So the key to the whole deal is we really don't have the grasp with our limited abilities to understand just how magnificent heaven is going to be. You know what I'm saying? So we got to realize this here. I believe this about God. If you shed one tear, he's going to wipe that tear away. If you shed many tears, he's going to wipe many tears away. And each tear that you shed, I think, is an individual tear. So we need to understand that how God works is through his power. You know what I'm saying? We're limited as humans. And when it tells you at the beginning of this lesson, and I'm going to read this again. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer a sea. When I read this lesson, the reason why the first heaven and the first earth passed away is due to the corruption of sin. And we look around now, we can see that humans are playing havoc on the earth. We're playing havoc on even the air that we breathe. We're playing havoc on the seas that we look out across every now and then when we're on the beach, thinking, oh, how beautiful it is. But it's corrupt. It tells you in this lesson. It said not only does it says that this old place that we're in will pass away, but it says the sea. During this vision that John had, John noticed something. He noticed that the new heaven and earth had no sea. And I got to wondering once again what it would be like to not have a sea. I don't know how many of y'all have actually flew over the sea or cruised the sea, but the sea is vast. And when I say vast, you can't see from one end to the other in some places. And so for this to say he paid attention when this vision came into him, there was no sea in the new heaven. It gave a definition of the reason why. And the reason why is this here. The sea was a symbolic gesture to represent evil. Listen to what it's saying about the sea. Evil, disorder, unrest, violence, and separation. We're talking about the sea, something God created, but yet it's no longer needed in the place that we all dream about going. See, life just don't stop right here. See, once revelations come in, it lets you know that you're going to experience a second death. And that's a whole different lesson. The second death. But what that's saying out about that sea to me was really a revelation in itself for me. Because, see, everything that will occur in this new place that we go, like the sun, the moon, the water, will no longer be there. What we will be looking at is we will be looking at the glory of God himself, the brilliance of God. They give a real depicted picture of how God is supposed to look. Eyes fiery, voice like many waters, feet as shining brass. That's going to be an amazing individual when you look at him. Right today, we cannot assume that we know what God looked like. Anybody tell you they know what God looked like? I actually want to meet that person. Because he's not visible to us right now. Now, when Jesus came in, he was visible. You had many testimonials of seeing Jesus himself in God's walking man. But as far as God himself, there's no visual proof right now that we can imagine what he looked like. We all made in the image of God, but we look at us. Every last one of them are different individuals. We have different traits. Getting back to what John was seeing unfold here in front of him, had to set John back a little bit. Because he's looking at two different scenarios in life. He's looking at where he's at now and what is to come. See, a lot of us, we face a future that's uncertain. But see, God do not deal with uncertainties. He do not. God is certain in every move he makes when it comes to us. Each individual. He's not going to pick out this certain group. And your uncertainty getting into heaven is different than this group over here. It's all in your obedience, your faith in him, to understand that it's open for all of us to get there. We just got to go through it. You know, because, see, one of the things that I would be really not wanting to be is on the outside of the gates. And I'm going to read this part here. This is New International Version, verse 5. He who was sitting on the throne said, I am making everything new. Then he said, write down, for these words are trustworthy and true. He said to me, it is done. I am the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirst, I will give water without cost from the spring of water of life. Those who are victorious will inherit all this, and I will be their God, and there will be my children. But cowardly, the unbelievers, the vile, the murderers, the sexual immorality, those who practice magic art, the idolaters, and the liars, they will be considered to the fiery lake of burning sulfur. This is the second death. Over one of the seven angels who had the seven bowls full of the seven last plagues, come and said to me, come, I will show you your bride, the wife of the Lamb. That, number 8, cowardly. In this lesson, it mentions one of the first things that Christians should not be. It's cowardly. And let me tell you what it said about cowardly. That jumped out at me. All the rest of the verses, the plagues and all that kind of stuff, that's coming. But the word cowardly actually depicts some of us today, the way we live. This is what it says about cowardly. The list begins with those who are cowards. Cowards are any who refuse to stand for Christ in the face of opposition. I never would have dreamed that I would have actually heard the word coward in the Bible. I can't even recognize even seeing it anywhere else in the Bible. The word coward. This takes me to this point right here. What was one of them? Fear. Fear? Okay. Anybody else got an explanation for cowardly? Fearful and unbelievable. That's great, because the word coward, to me, is a very a very hair-triggered word for some of us today. You let somebody call a man a coward, and he's standing in front of somebody else, he's going to show you what a coward is. Yeah, that's true. And you know, they have another saying too. I think coward is a word that we need to pay attention to in this. But they also say an idle mind is the devil's workshop. How many of y'all have heard that? And I believe that to this day. And that's a great point, you know. But let me help you out here a little bit. We can go around and make all these justifications on why we do this and why we do that. Using the word cowardly, it's mentioned in here, is a person that actually don't stand for the Lord. That's the key. But in the meantime, what do we do to turn the individual cowardly attitude around? What do we do to turn a cowardly attitude around to get them to believe in the word? What do we do? There you go. There you go. That's right. See, God is using this as a description for ones who fail to believe in him. That don't mean that everybody out there is not trying to believe in him. You see what I'm saying? So we need to understand the key to changing a cowardly attitude around to where you stand for nothing is to go out and witness to them. Show them things in your life that God has done for you. Because, see, each one of us, God has done something for us. And the reason why I know that is some of our old ways, just like this lesson, have passed away. There's nobody in here now taking 3 steps back and 1 step forward. Well, I certainly hope so. We're in the right place to where you can take 10 steps forward and 1 step back. So don't take it lightly. We're not here because of our help, we're here because of our need. Our need is for us to be more Christ-like. We're not here for any other reason. So when we start talking about Revelations as a whole, Revelation is showing us something. It's showing us something to the point to where if you cannot read Revelations, then you need to pray about it. Because Revelation is going to take you on a journey that's unbelievable. See, John being an apostle, witness to what God has done and the miracles that God had done, I think he's one of the blessed to see it. See, all we have is hope and faith that this is what will occur. That this is going to pass away and we're going to a better place. Ain't none of us died and came back and told us it was a better place. That's our faith that keep us going in that direction. Nothing else. Go ahead, mister. Correct. Yeah, and that's one thing that when you become a believer in God, everything he does for us is free. There's no cost. The cost we pay is believing in him, and if he created everything around us, I find that very easy to do myself. But we have to understand that everything he do, like this free living water, is free. But one of the things that we left out of that, though, Ms. Grace, you have to make it inside the gate. You have to accept him. You can't be standing on the side outside the gate and expect to get the free water flowing to you. Yeah, you got to go that way to receive that free water. So we need to understand, once you get inside that gate, it's a good thing. Standing outside that gate, I don't know how close this fiery pit is going to be from the gate entry to the deal, but I assume it's not going to be very far. Some of us is going to head that way. Go ahead. No. Mm-hmm.
And if we don't get to heaven, there's only two choices. There's no in between. There's no middle. I mean, you can ride the fence on a lot of stuff, but this you cannot. You just need to accept his will and accept him as your Savior, and you will go to heaven. Or we can do the opposite and end up in the fiery pit.
And I believe there's a fiery pit out there. You can look at the temperatures out there today. But I'm going to give you a little bit of analogy on the word God. God is plural, number one. Did you ever notice some of these other cultures around the world that we live in today? They have a God for fire. They have a God for water. They have a God for moon. They have a God for the suns. Let me tell you what I think about that. I think they got too many gods because they always find themselves backed into a corner. Backed into a corner on believing in one true God. So they justify their behavior by accounting for many gods instead of one God. They feel like this one God is not sufficient enough for them to only believe in that one. So they create many gods. And I'm sitting there thinking, now if he's Lord of lords, gods of gods, what makes you think your God is powerful than his God?
Well, he proved it to them like with Baal. He showed them that they were worshiping Baal, and that Baal could do something, but God consumed the fire and put the water out and consumed the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just man's way of trying to deal with God. They don't want to accept him at his word, as the Bible says, so they have to create something of their own that they believe in. But if they took the true living God, they wouldn't have to worry about having a multitude of gods.
Now they wouldn't. See, Revelations to me is actually explaining all this to us. We only need to have faith in one God. We only need to believe in one God. And
I like to think of Revelation as you get to see the end, like you watch a movie. You don't want to see the end first, right? They tell you, oh, don't tell me what's in the book.
mm-hmm.
But God didn't do that to us. He gave us the end of the movie. So we get to see it up front and plain. So we don't have to guess what's going to happen. We have choices.
Yeah, we have choices, and that's a great thing to know the end of the story before the end happened. Do you think that got us set, going on the right course down the road? No, it don't. No, it don't. Oh, yeah. I'm not saying that everything that we know about the Bible is a good thing. You ever notice the Bible to be wrong about anything? So we can take that equation out of the reading of the word. But what I'm saying is the course that, like you say, the choices that we make, seeing revelations play out in front of us, makes it very difficult for us not to go down that course. Because, see, Revelation is actually telling us, like I say, it depicts God's power. It depicts God's plan. It explains to you what your reward is once you become obedient to him. But what gets me sometimes still to this day is we see it, but yet we don't believe it. We hear it, yet we don't hear it. What's wrong with that? Sin. Yeah. Yeah. But there's a word for all this choices and stuff we make. It falls back to sin. There you go. Sin is not an option when you believe in God. He limits your options to sin. All he wants you to be is more Christ-like. If you work toward being more Christ-like, like it's explained in here in Revelation, because I don't think John could have seen the new heaven and earth if he was in his carnal mind. I just don't think he could. He had to be in the Spirit. When we sit down and we read the Bible itself, and we start out at chapter 1, verse 1, and we jump to chapter 46, verse 46, we done missed the meat of the bone. We have to fill in them numbers. We have to fill it in to get the full gist of what he's telling us to do and what it is that we need to be doing. See, Revelations is a book that a lot of people seem to be scared of reading. That's because it's misunderstood. The word is put in front of you for you to understand and do accordingly. It's not to hinder you. It's put there for a reason. So when we think about Revelations, think about it this way. It's true. The fiery pit, the second death, the 1,000 years, the conquering all pain, suffering, and evil itself. It's going to be conquered. And the reason why I stand firm on it, because God said it. I don't need no other reason. I'm not going to use people's names that's in the White House to tell me not to take a shot when I know I need to take a shot. But this is the weapon of choice. You know, we sit down and we take reading the Bible just for granted. You better get something out of it. I'm going to read something here that I've seen in here. Let me see if I can find it. Any comments? Let me see. I thought I highlighted that in yellow. I usually go through here and highlight. I wanted to be sure that I read it properly to you. I don't see it, but I'm going to jump over to, let me see, where do it say the bowls, verse 9. Let's go to verse 9. One of 7 angels who had the 7 bowls full of the 7 last plagues came and said to me, "Come, I will show you the bride, the wife of the Lamb." Who's the bride? He's coming back for the churches. And see, at the time of this particular reading, we done split it off into so many churches that this was actually centered around 7 churches. The church hadn't splintered into 9,000 different parts. That's just hypothetical. This was centered around the 7 churches of that time. And then when we talk about the plagues, I left my notebook, but I listed every last one of them plagues. Them plagues are going to be horrible to go through. Each one of us take us through a process where it's going to eliminate a certain amount of people, a certain amount of land, a certain amount of something is going to be eliminated. And when it comes to that last plague, it's going to be finished. Because, see, one of the deals that I know that he did something with the Euphrates River. You know, he actually did something with the sun and the moon and the mountains and islands and things of this nature. So Revelations itself is letting us know that that's not the end, just because that's gone away. We're going to experience death again. And this time, it's going to be for all the marbles. Either you go here or you go there. Heaven or hell, make your choice right now. Because, see, we got a lot of things pulling against us these days. Revelation is clearing it up for us to the point to where I would advise everyone to take time out, read it, hear it, listen to it. Because fear is something that we need not fear if we are believers. Revelation proves that to us. Revelation is not only a book of apocalyptic means, but it's a book of hope. That we all one day will be on inside of the gate receiving the free water. I'm going to wrap this up and call Reverend Sherrill, but any comments, questions, anything like that? And I'm going to leave y'all with this bit of advice. Don't always listen to someone telling you to listen. Read the lesson. Because if you don't read the lesson, how do you know that person in front of you is telling the truth? I'm not saying that to be ill will about anything. That's just the way it is. We're here to be taught. But to be taught, you have to take some responsibilities of yourself and read the lesson yourself. Because we can't tell it all in one moment, 1 second, 1 day. This is an ongoing story. We're in the middle of the journey, but yet we haven't finished.